right. Jeff Zucker, CNN. So the head of CNN, in a pretty stunning move, suddenly stepped down. This broke yesterday. Let's go ahead and put this first tweet up on the screen there from Brian Stelter. Jeff Zucker just announced his resignation to a stunned CNN. What he lays out here, leave this tweet up on the screen for a moment, is that while they were investigating Chris Cuomo's tenure at CNN, Zucker was asked about a consensual relationship, this is per his statement, with his closest colleague, someone I've worked with for more than 20 years. I acknowledge the relationship evolved in recent years. I was required to disclose it when it began, but I didn't. I was wrong. As a result, I am resigning. So effectively, he admits that he's been having this long-time, consensual, from all appearances, affair. And as we kind of get further through the day, it turns out that nobody was surprised by the affair.
Apparently it was one of the biggest open secrets in all of New York.
Everybody knew. I mean, and they both ultimately ended their marriages over the affair. And also I want to say, like, I mean, I don't personally really care about the affair. This wasn't some junior level, like 23-year-old producer like Matt Lauer was into. This was another sort of senior level person. So yes, he's the head of CNN. There's some power dynamic thing, whatever. But from what I can tell, this was relatively co-equal people having a consensual relationship. So then you start to go, well, I'm not surprised by the affair, but why are you resigning over it now? So put a pin in that for now. Had to laugh at Brian Stelter's reaction to this. Go ahead and throw this up on the screen.
Yeah.
He describes Jeff Zucker as larger than life. He's a pioneering figure at CNN for nearly a decade. Now his resignation is stunning this newsroom and the news industry. Of course, Stelter has been the most reliable CNN propagandist and lackey for Zucker. In fact, there's some calls this morning for Stelter to be fired over this as well, because, I mean, his whole job, supposedly, is to be media watchdog.
Yes.
And when you're in that position, you're supposed to be not just watching other outlets and criticizing them, which he's very comfortable doing, but you're also supposed to be holding your own people to account. I mean, that's a very difficult and uncomfortable job to be in, but that's the job you signed up for. And so if this was total open secret, and if there were, you know, if it helped her get promotions, and if there was some tie-in with what was going on with Cuomo, well, this is stuff that Brian Stelter, if you knew about it, you're supposed to be breaking as a media reporter. So it's funny that even in this moment, he's feigning such surprise. There's no way he didn't know.
He obviously knew.
This was ultimately going on. Put the next piece up on the screen because this is interesting.
This is where it's all about, folks.
Yes. So when you start to go, okay, so consensual affair, everybody knew about it. Why is he leaving now? Why is he being pushed out now? Well, it turns out the woman that he was involved with, Allison Gollust, had been Governor Cuomo's communications director before becoming executive vice president at CNN. So it starts to look like there's some direct tie-in with the treatment, the kid gloves treatment of Cuomo, how he was allowed to stay on the air for so long, how it took so long for there to be any accountability whatsoever. And of course, Chris Cuomo came out swinging and hired lawyers and said he was taking legal action to try to get the rest of the money on his contract because he thought he was fired.
$18 million.
Because he thought he was terminated unfairly, and even sort of alluded to, like, there's going to be some other things that come out. So it looks like Chris Cuomo, former CNN anchor, may be having his revenge here, and that there may be a lot more going on underneath the surface here than just a long-time, open secret, consensual affair.
So, as I understand it, I've been asking around to some people in the know, and the phones are going hot right now, I can tell you. So, this is basically what has been happening, which is that open secret affair was being weaponized by Chris Cuomo's legal team. And legal team, apparently in a recent meeting with Warner Media and Discovery, was like, hey, how can he say that it was an inappropriate relationship of Chris and his brother whenever the boss has been screwing one of his executive vice presidents, who herself was a former communications director for Governor Andrew Cuomo? And that's a pretty good point.
I'm
and
sure,
it's such a good point.
There's all kinds of communications that look very bad for everybody involved.
Right, and it's such a good point, Krystal, that actually there was a leak about a month ago. I'm frankly embarrassed. I didn't even know about it. It's from a gossip website called Radar Online. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, where they said CNN bosses Jeff Zucker and Allison Gallus left their marriages after alleged romantic affair and a cozy arrangement dragged into the Chris Cuomo scandal. So what they allege actually within this piece, and I think it's pretty obviously planted by Chris Cuomo's legal team in retrospect, is that what they point out is that the relationship between Zucker and Allison Gallus, part of the issue is that part of the reason why Zucker may have been so soft on Chris in the first place is that she, given her previous relationship with Governor Cuomo, was like, hey, come on, it's his brother, you know Andrew, her former boss, and given that she's literally sleeping with her boss, this also seems important. And so all of this culminated ultimately in the kid gloves treatment, which led to the months and months of bad behavior by Cuomo, and ultimately for him to play that role of going ahead and getting involved in the defense and lying to CNN's bosses. And what actually makes this so significant beyond the actual story by itself is this morning, what we are learning is that there was a meeting last night between the head of Warner Media, Jason Kilar, and the CNN DC bureau. Now, at this meeting, the CNN's journalists are freaking out and apparently asked him, did the punishment really fit the crime? Did you really not know? Well, and these people were Jake Tapper, Caitlin Collins, and Jim Acosta. Let me tell you why it was those three people. And this is from what I know, having asked around about how Zucker ran his network. He looked at his talent like his family. As in, any criticism of them, including Chris Cuomo, was like an attack on him. He took it very personally. He protected them from network higher-ups, from criticism, and all that. They're freaking out because, and they want to revenge for their boss, because now the battle axe could be coming. Because what have I told you guys previously? Discovery's CEO hates CNN. He thinks that they are a huge problem, and Discovery is the new owner of CNN, the new bosses of CNN. They do not like many of the talent there. They've actually been eyeing a shakeup for a long time, and Zucker was the chief proponent for no. We got to keep the Trump Russiagate madness.
Was the buffer.
Exactly, he was the buffer. So now that he's out, their necks are on the line. This is a big problem for everybody involved. So look, sleazy media shenanigans going on. Look, they're consensual relationship, like whatever. But there's some pretty creepy stuff that has been revealed. We'll put this up there, put the tweet. So these are memoirs from, you actually read it, so you can describe it.
And I forgot about this section.
This is from Katie Couric's memoir.
So Katie Couric wrote this, very dishy memoir, which actually was very interesting to read. I did a whole monologue on it if you guys want to go out and check it out, which actually you all were very interested in, which I was a little bit surprised with. Anyway, when she was at ABC, and she was working with Jeff again, he made a push to try to bring in this woman who we now know he was having an affair with, Allison, as like a PR person. And Katie already had a PR person. She's like, why are you forcing this person on me? Like, I'm good. And they had a meeting that was sort of uncomfortable, and Allison actually said to her, I don't want to force myself on you. And she's like, okay. And she also reveals in that piece that the two had moved their families in next to each other. She actually had bought the apartment above him and his family. And Katie sort of leaves it to readers to glean what's going on there. And she just says, like, I was very uncomfortable with the relationship because she was close friends with Jeff Zucker's wife.
Oh, man.
Then the sort of kicker of this little anecdote she tells is that Zucker is up for the job at CNN.
Yes.
Big job. He asked Katie for a recommendation. Can you put in a good word? Can you help me get the job? I promise there'll be a slot for you there. He gets the job. Number one, there never was a slot for Katie. That favor was never returned. Number two,
he never called her again.
The very first hire was Allison. And it does speak to the point also of this being just like everybody knew that this was going on. And it wasn't a problem for him all these years. It's only now with whatever was happening behind the scenes with the Cuomo incident that this really became an issue for him. Now, listen, Zucker was planning to later on step down from this position at CNN once the merger was complete. So that was a little ways into the future. But this is, obviously extraordinarily abrupt and at a time of huge transition for CNN right now as well. I mean, they're trying to get this totally laughable, pathetic streaming thing up and running.
CNN Plus, which was also his baby.
Which is his baby. The latest news on that is that they're giving Don Lemon a show on there, which is just like, how do you delude yourself into thinking that this is going to work? Because Don Lemon, not only is his show on CNN not do very well, but he had that podcast. Remember we found out he had that podcast with Chris Cuomo?
Oh, that's right.
They did that handoff podcast, which no one even knew about or listened to until it became relevant to the scandal. So that already it's been proven in the alternative media ecosystem, this person has no cachet, no audience, no one cares what he has to say, and yet you put him into the streaming lineup. So anyway, it's a time of great transition at CNN, as it is at MSNBC and somewhat to a degree at Fox News as well. So for him to abruptly leave is really a big deal. And, from the people I know that work at CNN as well, they say the same thing about he's very hands-on with his talent. He has very sort of personal relationships with the hosts and the anchors who are there. So if you've invested all this time sucking up to Jeff Zucker to ensure your place in the CNN hierarchy, and now suddenly, without any warning, he's gone. Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of anchors who are feeling very exposed right now, not knowing who's going to replace him, and not knowing how they'll be judged in the just cold, harsh light of, hey, what are your ratings like, and how are you delivering for the bottom line?
And not necessarily even the ratings there, Krystal, which is that the image of CNN is a black mark for a lot of people who are at Time Warner and with Warner Media. The people who are at the higher ups in Hollywood, they don't want to deal with it because they know that it attacks regulatory scrutiny, that yes, with news comes power, but comes controversy. And they don't want controversy. Controversy is bad for business. This is part of the reason why Fox News was spun off from the rest of the Fox empire and was sold off to Disney, was specifically because neither side wanted to deal with the other, and they had to deal with boycotts and all this stuff. So, if I was one of those people in the CNN Washington bureau who kissed Jeff Zucker's ass for the last 5 years, I'd be freaking out a little bit right now. And look, for me, it's just a little bit of a karmic justice. I've watched some people flourish in this town. People like Jim Acosta become chief White House correspondent under the auspices of Jeff Zucker, who steered the country in that direction, rewarding his clownish, idiotic behavior, giving him his own show, turning him into a national celebrity at the detriment of the entire country with the shenanigans that they pulled under the Trump years. So this is just a small, small measure of justice. And I'm really looking forward to what the new Discovery people are going to be doing. I just can't wait to.
And when this story initially broke, I was sort of planning on my commentary to be that of all the things that Zucker has done that have been evil and wrong, like consensual
his
affair,
sex scandal,
but between someone who's more or less at your level, right? Where there's not a lot of power or pressure, whatever. That's the least of whatever his sins were at the network. But if what's really going on here is it's because of how he handled the Cuomo thing, that actually is worthy.
It's a great cause.
That is a worthy reason for him to ultimately be fired, even though, all of these people are rotten to the core. Think of what they've done to this country. And, Donald Trump was a horror show for this country, and Jeff Zucker openly admitted being part of helping to deliver him to the White House. So he's so culpable. He's as culpable as anyone in the just totally toxic, destroyed, divisive political atmosphere that's been created over the past number of years. So to see him get his comeuppance for, especially if it is because really of what happened with Cuomo. That is actually just. And the other thing on that Radar Online, that sort of gossip rag that had this story a month or so back, the word is that, Cuomo's people were shopping this story to a lot of outlets, and they're the only one that would pick it up because
they were afraid.
Everybody's afraid. That's why these things don't come out long before when they're quote unquote open secrets. It's because all of these outlets do the calculation of is it worth it to get this story and then face the ire of someone who's incredibly connected, incredibly powerful, not just in media, but in politics too, who has, a streak for revenge, and everybody calculated over many years that, hey, it's just not worth it. So that's why, didn't hear about it till now.
Well, The bell tolls for thee, Jeff Zucker. I will say the only good thing he ever did in his life is he did greenlight Fear Factor with Joe Rogan. He's the one who made Joe Rogan a household name. Yeah, I know. It's wild, actually. Within the span of 2 years, he greenlit 2 shows. Fear Factor with Joe Rogan and The Apprentice with Donald Trump. So what an impact on history this man has had.
Wow. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.